Guys, I swear, the new Eloy drums by Bogren Digital are some of the most aggressive and punchy and hard-hitting drum samples I've ever tried. I'm really impressed, and they are also very easy to use. This is so awesome. Let's take a listen to a full demo mix. Check it out. All right, that sounded awesome. Super punchy, super in your face. I loved how the cymbals sounded. I loved how the shells sounded. Really awesome. So that is cool. Now, who is Eloy CasaGrande or CasaGrande? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He's a famous drummer from Brazil, born in 1991, I believe. And he plays in Slipknot. Everybody knows Slipknot, right? He joined them, I think, a year ago or so. And before that, he played in Sepultura, another legendary band from Brazil. And yeah, he's known for being super fast, super technical, super hard hitting, just a really, really cool drummer. So when Bogren Digital asked me to make a video about this new product, I was very excited because I love me some punchy metal drums, okay? Now this product comes with two full kits. We have the CasaGrande kit, which is basically the Slipknot kit. Super full-fledged, you know, with two kicks, 5 toms, a bunch of cymbals, and even a gong. That's what I used for the demo track. And then we also have the CasaGroove kit, which is basically the Sepultura kit. It's more stripped down and a bit more thick and meaty sounding. Later in the video, we're also going to check out that kit, of course. Now, my overall impressions are that it's, again, super easy to use, sounds really good, sounds really realistic. And yeah, there's a lot of tweakability within the plugin itself. This is a sample pack that you can load into Kontakt by Native Instruments, just so you guys know, but it's really easy to use there. Anyway, so I'm really impressed and I want to show you guys what this plugin can do and what it has to offer, okay? Now, for the demo track, I did almost everything inside the Kontakt player itself, so all the processing in the built-in mixer and stuff. I basically loaded up the basic kit, so the main kit, and I did a little bit of tweaking here and there to make it suit my personal style and to make the kit fit the mix. But I didn't have to do a whole lot, so it already sounds great out of the box, which is wonderful. So you can get started with making music right away. That's a really positive thing in my opinion. Quickly, for the guitar tones, I used a Bogren Digital plugin. I used this plugin over here, the Amp Knob BDM 410 JVH, which is based on a Marshall JVM. I think those guitars sounded really good. Let's take a very quick listen, just for fun, because I'd never used these guitar sounds before. So yeah, super gnarly guitar tones there, really good sounding. The guitar that I used is a Schecter PT SLS Elite with Fishman Fluence modern pickups in it. So yeah, just wanted to show you that real quick. Of course, I programmed all the drums by hand in the Cubase drum editor, as you can see over here. So what I did basically, I had these drums programmed with another drum sampler, a well-known drum sampler, SD3, and I wanted to convert it and tweak it basically with this Bogren product. And converting it was very easy because this drum sampler from Bogren has some MIDI maps in there that you can use. Let me show you that real quick from other products, okay? So I used the Superior Drummer 3 map to convert the drums for this plugin. I only had to move a couple samples around because I was using one of the SDX expansions, okay? But I just wanted to show you that. So it's also very easy that if you're using, you know, another drum product and you want to move over to this one, it's easy to convert the maps basically. So I'm still running my custom drum map that I have of that other product, and it's working really well for the most part. Now let's take a listen to the drums in solo so you can hear them by themselves, okay? So I'm going to put this to solo and let's take a quick listen. So awesome. Now, a lot of my hits, as you can see, are red. So that means that a lot of my hits are on the full velocity, okay? Eloy hits the drum super hard, and I wanted to get that power in here. By the way, for metal and stuff, I use the 127 very often. I'm sorry, not so sorry, but it sounds great here. But this drum sampler has some tricks up its sleeve to make the drums sound more realistic. Okay, so we have this anti-machine gun thing over here, which I have on always. That really helps to make the drums sound more human, especially if you're doing fast hits, you know, with the snare and stuff. So that really helps. We can also try it quickly with this off, just so you guys can hear it. Now that doesn't sound bad at all, but when we turn it on, it gets a little bit more realistic. And, you know, I love that because as musicians, we want to create music. And if this feature wasn't in this drum sampler, then you'd have to go in and adjust all the velocities and stuff and the timing a little bit. And this just makes it really realistic with one single click. So I like that. And we also have this auto double kick feature, which is cool. So if you've got very fast kick patterns and you have them all on one single MIDI note, it will alternate between the two kicks. So that is great. Anyway, so let's take a look at this main kit view screen over here with the CasaGrande kit, okay? So this is the Slipknot kit, if you will. As you can see, it's a very large kit. I love how it looks, very brutal with that bloody background and with these beautiful white drums over here. And I want to go through all the samples real quick. So we have two kicks. Nice and punchy and thick. And yeah, great for metal because they have a lot of clarity and click as well, which is cool. Then we have 5 toms. Super punchy and balanced sounding, really nice. And for the cymbals and toms, you get one option, but you get a variety of snares, which we'll get into in a second. First, let's try the cymbals. Let's start with the hi-hat. It's a cool splash. The stack thingy. I really like the sound of these cymbals. A second hi-hat on the right side. China. And this bell thing. And this ride over here, really good as well. So yeah, a lot of cymbal options to choose from. We also get this gong. Check it out. How cool is that? So that's a cool little extra touch. Now let's get to the snares, my favorite part, okay? Kick and the snares, that's just my favorite thing. This is the default snare. It's the snare that I was using. Super tight. punchy and compact, right? Great for the Slipknot stuff. Let's check the other snares. So we also have this bell brass 80 not dampened. It's a bit more ringy sounding. Sounds great for like Deftones and stuff. Really nice. And then this Premiere damped. Very nice. And then the Premiere undamped, I guess. A little bit more ringy. Then the Super Tonic. They're all so hard hitting, really awesome. Love it. And then the Black Beauty, an essential, right? Really cool. So that has a nice ring to it as well. Let's go back to the first one and let's go to the undamped version, right? So those are all the samples that you can use with this particular kit. Again, we'll try the other kit in a second as well. Now, real quick, let me show you this menu over here. Again, this is the mapping section where you can choose your custom drum map, do MIDI learn, program it yourself, or choose one of these pre-programmed drums that work for other drum samplers, right? So that's cool. And you can also customize the velocities for all the drums over here. Of course, over here we can see Eloy with Jens Bogren. And then back to the kit view. So that is that. Very simple. And over here you can see the MIDI keyboard with all the drum hits and stuff. Now, before I show you the mixer, I also want to show you the groove section. The groove section has a bunch of grooves that were, played by Eloy himself. I think around 150 or so, which is cool. So if we go to the hard rock section, for example, let's try a couple grooves. That's really cool. Let's try some of the thrash metal grooves here. That's crazy. I'm not much of a groove user myself. I like to program the drums myself, but that's a lot of fun if you don't, want to write your own grooves or you want some inspiration or some really sick grooves that are played by Eloy. Really awesome. Okay, so that is cool. Now let's go check out the mixer, which is an awesome part of this product. We've got channels for all the drums over here and some cool little extras. Of course, you can pan the drums. As you can see, the toms and stuff have been pre-panned in this preset, which I was using, so the default sound, right? You got volume faders, we have solo, mute buttons, etc., etc. So that is all very nice. And let's take a very quick look at some of the options that you get here in terms of processing. So if we take a look at the kick over here, then we have some sends. So you can send all the separate drums and stuff to a couple different reverbs for different effects. So if you're doing a very slow song, you might want to use the long reverb. Or if you want to do a very fast song, the short reverb would be better, right? Which is what I'm using for the kick here. We also have an envelope effect, which is useful for shaping the drums, of course, for adding attack, for adding decay or making the decay shorter. You can also change the pitch of the shells. And we have a bleed control over here to control the bleed for the overhead and the room channels. So that is really nice. We also have a kick sub over here. And that's really cool for adding the thickness, of course. Let's take a listen to just the two main kicks over here. And then the sub. So we're adding that in, right? Now for the kick, what's being used here is a transient effect and an EQ. Very simple. Now for this kick sub channel, there's a transient designer on the channel with a little bit of attack added and some sustain taken away and some EQ as well. I think this is one of the channels that I tweaked a little bit. I reduced some of the boxy mids basically. So yeah, really simple stuff. And then for the kick, we also have this kick trigger with a couple samples. Let's take a listen to the Harder Please sample, which is on there right now. So just adding a little bit of like, of a modern flavor to those natural sounding drums. Let's also try the Sumo sub. So that's cool. You get two different types of samples. You can also change the pitch, add some reverb, etc. Or add your own one-shot samples. That is a nice touch as well, and they make it super easy. All right. Now for the snare, main snare channel, so the snare top, you know, we have a transient designer going on, a compressor, of course, and some EQ. Let's take a listen, and let's try all the snare samples together. So we have snare top, snare bottom, and again, a trigger. Let's take a listen to those snare trigger sounds. So, you know, those are just some cool one-shot samples to make the sound more thick. And for the toms, what I did is I tweaked the EQ a little bit. I cut the mids a little bit more just to make them sound a little bit less boxy, which worked for my personal mix. Now, what is cool about the toms is that you can link the bleed controls. Very handy little feature. You know, it's those little features that make this plugin extra easy to use. Hi-hat, of course, overheads. It's cool how in the overheads you can balance out all the instruments over here. For example, if you think that the splash is too loud or something, you can just tweak the individual level here. Really nice. And of course, we have a room channel. And then on the master channel, we have the reverb controls for the short and long reverbs and this parallel compression over here. We can take a quick listen to what that is doing. You know, it's gluing the whole drum bus together, which is a very common thing to do. And you can go very extreme with that as well. And use the mix control to blend it in, you know, for some New York compression, some parallel compression, right? We have this master EQ over here to tweak the sound a little bit. This is how it was set for the preset. Sounds nice, sounds good to me. And then this master tape, which is very nice. You know, it adds a bit of warmth, it adds a bit of glue and some subtle saturation. Let's take a listen to how this sounds. Let me tweak that drive control for a second. So that is definitely adding some warmth, okay? I love all these features. Let me show you all the processing options that you have on a channel. So we have EQ, we have the compressor, kind of like an 1176. You can go really crazy with that. Let's try that. So you can make it super sustainy and ringy if you want. I really like the sound of this compressor. And then we also get the transient. Let's try that for a second. You know, you can change the attack and the sustain with the transient designer. Let's mess with the attack and sustain controls for a sec. Yeah, so that sounds really musical, and I like how extreme you can go with that. Really awesome, right? Then, of course, saturation. Let's give that a go. Kind of looks like a rat. Yeah, so that is awesome. You can go really crazy in terms of the aggression, saturation. And if you want to dive in deeper, of course, you can send all these separate tracks to various tracks in your DAW and process them yourself with your own plugins, etc. For me, I didn't think it was necessary, to be honest, because I think that the preset that I loaded in already sounded really good. I just needed to do some subtle tweaks to make it sound good for my personal mix, but I'm definitely very impressed with these sounds, really digging the sounds here. Now, there was one thing that I was doing in the DAW myself. Basically, just to let those drums fit in my own mix, there are some plugins that I like to use, which is the Virtual Channel by Slate Digital. It's a very subtle console saturation. And then also the Virtual Tape Machine, just so you know. But that's the only thing. It adds a little bit of color, but not a whole lot. Okay, so basically 99% of all the sound is coming from these drums. And sounds so good, right? Now, of course, we have two kits. So I want to try the other kit as well. Let's load up the CasaGroove kit over here and see how that looks and how that sounds. All right, so very different looking, as you can see, and more stripped down. So more like the Sepultura kit, right? Let's take a listen to these samples separately. Let me turn down the master volume a little bit here, because I did that with the other kit as well. Those floor toms are massive sounding. I love it when kits have two floor toms on either side. Very nice. Of course, the kick. And let's try the cymbals. Really nice. So with the default settings, what I like to do is cut some mids out of the overheads just to get that whoosh sound out of there. But that's just like a personal touch that I like to do. And I would also scoop the toms a little bit, which is just, again, something for my taste, right? Cool. Let's try the different snares that come with this kit. So it's on the Bell Brass 79 damped. Let's try the normal one. That is one massive sounding snare. Really cool. The super tonic low. Man. That reverb till also sounds so nice. And the super tonic high. Cool. I love the low one. I'm a sucker for low tuned snares. So wonderful, the Canon Puss. And of course, the Black Raven. So yeah, if you like low and meaty drum sounds, this is the kit to use. And for super fast and technical stuff, perhaps the CasaGrande kit is the one to use, right? I'm impressed. Let's try some of the grooves with this particular kit. Let's try the hard rock again. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's go into the mixer and tweak the drums a little bit to make them sound a little bit more to my liking. I'm going to start with the kick drum. Basically, what I want to do is remove some of those boxy low mids. Okay, so that's a tweak that I would make. Snare sounds great as is. Let's also take a listen to the overheads. Usually for the overheads, what I like to do is remove some mids as well. So let's do that. Let's take a listen again. I kind of like how the frequency values are not notated here. So you're really forced to use your ears, right? Let's take another listen. Cool, let's go and find a tom groove so I can tweak the toms a little bit as well. Yeah, so for the toms, again, I do like to extract some mids there, for my style anyway. Just to give you an example, it's a matter of finding the offensive frequency, if you will. With toms, it's often around the, let's say, 600, 800 hertz area, depending on the tom, and then scoop some of that out, right? So that's some tweaks to make it sound more my own, if you will. Let's say we want to do a very slow inspired groove. And I want to make the snare sound even more ambient. Then what we're going to do is go to the snare channel and add some reverb along. Let's take a listen. Great. And also, let's try changing the pitch. Let's see how that sounds. Usually with drum samplers, I don't really mess with that control, but let's just try it out. As long as you don't go too far, it sounds pretty natural. All right, so that is the other kit, the CasaGroove kit. Now, what are my overall thoughts? If you couldn't tell already, I really like the sounds that these kits have to offer. I like how the shells have been recorded. I like how they've been processed. I imagine they did some processing, perhaps some analog processing on the way to tape, if you will. I also like how the mixer offers you controls over the entire kit. You don't need to go into the DAW and use your own plugins. Of course you can if you want, but it really isn't necessary. You've got compressor, you've got EQ, you got saturation, you got the transient designer, you've got the built-in reverb. Man, it's so easy to use. It's just a lot of fun. And there are going to be some presets in there from famous producers. So there are going to be a lot of sounds in there that will be pre-processed for you to use. So that is great as well. You can just get started right away with creating some awesome music. And I do think that these drums as a whole have a really unique character to them, likely due to Eloy himself, who plays the drums a certain way, and then produced by Jens Bogren, of course, to create that signature sound. So two forces coming together to make this absolutely awesome sounding drum sampler that I highly recommend checking out. Eloy Drums from Bogren Digital. Massive thanks to Bogren for sponsoring this video, of course. Check out the links below if you want to check this product out. If you want to support this channel in another way, you can use my affiliate links for Thomann, Sweetwater, etc. or get something in my web store. I always really appreciate that. Also, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, as that really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this drum sampler. I'd love to know. And you can also follow Sonic Drive Studio on Facebook and Instagram, of course. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hope to see you soon. Cheers.